What this is these are the three Dellinger sisters who are here for Mary Agnes's birthday party. The ones we can see anyhow. I've got a feeling we have got some good ghosts around.
Yep.
But we have Mary Agnes and Cordelia, who was the oldest, and Mary Agnes and Rachel. And they're going to tell us some of their memories about growing up in this house and being here so that their great-grandchildren can see this.
Uh-oh. You mean the stories that we can really tell?
Well, yeah. Yeah, tell the stories you can tell. But anyhow, want to tell us, first of all, when you were born, what's your birthday and what year you were born, so people get some idea of what time of
What generation you
And
belong to?
where?
Live, like he says.
That's a good idea. October the 20th, 1922, Crossnore.
Okay, and you were the oldest.
I am
And,
the oldest.
okay, and then
Dellinger
Ruth
Sisters.
was born March 27th, 1924, right? And then Mary Agnes was born.
January the 8th, 1926.
Okay, and then W.C. was born,
August 14th, 1927.
okay, and then Rachel was born.
I was born November 28, 1929. We had a half-sister named Annie Lara,
Yes.
and she was born on November the 5th in 1911.
So she was older when they married, when
She was 7, I think.
when her mother, her father died, and then their mother remarried, married Theron Dellinger. Okay, so why don't you all give some sense of what it was like to grow up in this house? What are some of the, well, let's talk about Christmas here. What was it like to have Christmas in this big house? Do you remember when the house was built, Cordelia?
Just vaguely. WC was the first one to,
Born in here.
yeah.
Yeah. They built the house because I was born and they needed more room.
I was born in a small house down in,
Yeah, the house was built in
below
27.
this one.
So he was the fourth child, and they felt like they didn't have enough room for the children in the little house, so they built this one. So what was it like to have Christmas here growing up? What was it like?
It's cold.
Well, it was fun. We cut the tree and we had some decorations. And what I remember most about the decorations were they were not unlike the ones today, which you can drop and they don't shatter. Those would shatter when you dropped them, and consequently there were many tears shed over the dropped Christmas things. And then we had a tradition that the youngest went in first, and I was always the last because I was the oldest.
Of the Dellingers, anyway. But then the mom and Aunt Laura came behind you, of course, and Daddy came in. Dad went in first and started the fire in the fireplace before the rest of us went in.
He went down to the post office first and worked on the mail.
Put up the mail.
Put up the mail, and then he'd come back and start the fire. And we always, as I told Andrew the other night, he was talked about on Christmas because of always having to wait for him.
He was always behind.
And so, because Andrew, he grew up here too, and he was the first in line.
We did not have a lot of toys, if I remember.
No,
Not a lot
we
of
got
toys.
one gift.
Yes, and one time Rachel and I had to share a gift.
Yeah.
We got a tea set together,
Yeah.
didn't we? So we were not really what we considered
didn't have
rich
a
with
lot of
toys
money.
and everything. And we had long stockings, my mother's silk stockings, and she was rather large. And so we'd fill those up, Santa Claus would fill those up with fruits. And we didn't have oranges here, of course, and oranges were very special. And nuts in them, and candy, and things like that. Not toys or anything like that, just fruits and things. And we would sit on the stair steps after Christmas, some candy in there, and eat some of the stuff in that stockings, because, and enjoy that after we'd opened the present we had. And we had breakfast after that, of course.
I'll start it again.
Now, we finished Christmas yet?
No,
Talk about more Christmas.
tell about caroling on Christmas Eve.
Oh,
Did we hear?
we didn't usually go out and carol.
People
around
came.
there.
We came
sang
here.
around the piano. We always sang around the piano. All of us around, and Mom played the
Mom
piano.
played the piano.
Yeah.
Sang around the piano.
We do that before we went to bed,
Yeah.
usually sing around the piano.
Sometimes we'd have company.
I have to tell one story about your mother, Ruth. We all always got in the same bed and decided what we were going to get that next day, what Santa Claus was going to bring us. Well, this one, I think I was about 5 years old, maybe 6. And Ruth had disappeared, and she'd come down the steps and looked in
Looking
the,
for Santa Claus.
looking to see what Santa Claus is. She comes back up, and she says, not any Santa Claus, it's Mama and Daddy.
And Ruth would always shake the presents and find out what was in them anyway. She had no patience for find out what was in them.
And on Christmas Day, also, Mom and Dad cooked for Uncle Doctor and Aunt Mary. They always came for Christmas lunch. Bill and Ted came. Yeah, I remember that. And one thing, we never sat in the dining room. We usually sat in the kitchen.
The children.
The children sat in the kitchen. The grown-ups sat in the dining room.
Yeah, you were asking about this dining room. Of course, we had company. Sometimes we'd be in here, but my main remembrance of this dining room was when we had the boarders.
Yeah.
And we had 2 or 3 tables set up sideways like this, and we had about 30 people from the school that were in the summertime, and my mother took them in to make a little extra money, and she could get canned goods that she couldn't can, like she could get pineapple, cans of pineapple, and things like that, and that's one reason she took them. She charged something like 25 cents a meal for the meal, and she'd give them 3 or 4 choices of juice in the morning, and maybe 3 or 4 different kinds of meat, and all that, and we waited on the tables and did things like that. I guess Cordelia may have helped with the cooking. I mostly set the table and stuff like that. But I remember one time I was trying to pour the orange juice so that it was even in 2 or 3 of the glasses for people. What was the lady's name? I don't know. But as I poured it from one glass to the other to make sure that they were even, she got very upset because she thought somebody had been drinking out of her. Yeah, probably. She thought somebody had been drinking out of her glass. And she's, Miss Theron, somebody's been drinking out of this glass. And of course, Mary Agnes is just trying.
You also need to tell the story, Mary Agnes, about you and the dishes.
Yeah.
Well, that's all, that's the stuff. It happened during the day. I was washing the lunch dishes. We had our big meal sometimes at lunch, especially when we had the movie theaters. And we would be going chicken sandwiches for supper sometimes that night. And in the daytime, we'd have cornbread and have our big meal. And I was washing the dishes, and while I was washing the dishes, would carry all the plates and dropped them and broke every one of them. And I was so upset. And I went down to the post office crying and telling Mom that I had dropped the dishes and broken all of them. She looked at me, she said, had you washed them? And I said, no. She said, aren't you glad you hadn't washed them? Which was the kind of person she was. She'd rise to the occasion, and sometimes you'd think that she would be really upset about something, but when you had your greatest crisis, she was there.
Always there. She was stern. She would be stern.
But she always,
All she had to do was look at you.
Yeah, she didn't have to spank you.
and she would tell me, she says, you're going to be a good girl, Mary Agnes. She said, I didn't dare do anything else. She said, you are going to be a good girl.
And when she wanted something done, what would she say?
You are?
No, wouldn't she say, wouldn't it be nice?
If such and such were done, yeah, big hint, and so you get it done. And of course, our father was tremendous. He just loved us to death.
Yeah.
Never seemed to be upset that we were daughters. Many men always wanted sons, but not Daddy. He loved every one of his daughters.
Yeah.
He always said he wouldn't pay $1 million to get another. Wouldn't take $1 million for the ones he had, but he wouldn't pay a nickel to get another one.
But they had named me Richard. But I turned out to be a Rachel.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
And he used to, he had cow.
Yeah, he had cow.
And we used to help him some, pick the chop out for the cows and the horse. We had a horse. And
We
of course,
used to
we had
milk
the
the
chickens.
cows, too.
Sometimes, not
I
much.
wouldn't milk Lady, though.
They wouldn't give us milk. They give Daddy milk, but they wouldn't give us milk. Cows can sort of freeze up their nipples and not give you milk. And sometimes they wouldn't. And we would get very unhappy because the cows would give Daddy milk, but they wouldn't give me milk. Sometimes.
Well, I thought you had one boy.
We did, WC.
WC.
Yeah.
Well, WC
Yeah,
and
so-
Mary Agnes and I were like the three musketeers. And Ruth and Cordelia were real
Twins.
Yeah, they were twins because they're about the same age. They had boyfriends when same time. And
Yeah, Cordelia and Ruth, but mostly Ruth, loved to go
Yeah,
downtown. Ruth wanted to be
was
downtown.
boy crazy.
Yeah, and she wanted to go downtown. Okay, can I go downtown? Can I go downtown? She loved to go downtown. And Cordelia would sometimes go along with her to make sure she
And
behaved
she
herself.
was bigger than I was, but I had to fight all her battles.
Yeah. Cordelia would fight any neighbor that attacked us. She had, I remember standing down there by the gate when Idaho, Frank Sanho
Franklin.
Yeah, she's
I
standing
know
up.
Franklin.
She was standing dressed up Franklin, right? She was gonna come after us, Cordelia thought. She says, we'll rock her when she comes. Let's get our hands full of rocks.
Yeah, well, Cordelia said, didn't she say, little, mama's little baby? What was
White
it?
as snow.
White as
White as
snow.
snow.
And mine's an angel, white as snow. Yeah, Cordelia would fuss at us and everything else, but then she would defend us to the hilt whenever we got in trouble. And of course, some of our fondest memories, I think as a children growing up here, was our trips to the river. We used to go to the river and go fishing all day long and ride on these logs.
Yeah.
And sometimes the rafts, we made rafts. WC and Rachel and I made a raft one time, and we went up and down the river in the raft.
We'll just get it later.
Intermission
Sorry,
point.
I wasn't doing any good there.
She's dying to do this.
Your sign language was no good.
It wasn't doing weird.
I think that one thing that we did is that Daddy always had us to work on holidays, like on the 4th of July. We worked in the garden.
Or cleaned the
Or
basement.
cleaned the basement, or did something before we went on a picnic. And usually we go on a picnic and it'd rain. Down at Uncle Arthur's did it sometimes, or with the dam.
Of course, always Dad said it wasn't gonna rain. He'd sing, it ain't gonna rain no more, no more, it ain't gonna rain no more, and then it would rain anyway. But pretend it wasn't going to, and we'd always go on the picnics as if it wasn't gonna rain.
And that was the song you used to sing.
Yeah, ain't gonna
Yeah,
rain.
that's right. He used to sing all kinds of songs. Daddy was singing all these old English songs. Margaret knows about Froggy and accordion and all that.
Well, that's one way he entertained us at night, was in the kitchen around the table. And he'd sing
Or ride in the
And
car.
play setback.
and play setback.
Or Rook.
Yeah.
I Rook later.
Well, in the summertime, we would snap beans.
Oh, yes,
Oh,
or
yes.
fix apples, or,
Or canned tomatoes.
yeah,
And you
peaches.
remember the butter beans we used to peel, open, and slice them?
Yeah.
And if you found a purple one, you got to go to bed early.
Yeah.
And if you didn't, every now and then you'd find a purple one, and the one who was lucky enough to find a purple bean could go to bed. They were lucky, didn't have to keep on working, and the rest of us would have to keep on shelling beans. So, to can them.
We played a lot, we had a lot of neighbor children that came to play because we had so much fun playing outside. We played Antony over the house here, and we played threw the ball over, and we played sheep in my pen, and
Dare base.
dare
Kick the
base,
can.
and
Kick the
kick the
can.
can. We'd end up sometimes having maybe 15 people out in the front yard with us playing. Because
And we played until it got dark. Mom would have to come get us. Sometimes she calls in to watch the telephone hour, or listen to the telephone hour. She loved pretty music, Mom did, and she wanted us to like it. So she wanted us to watch Bell Telephone. I guess it was Bell Telephone, is that what you call that?
To listen to it
Telephone hour.
on the
Telephone
radio.
hour, we used to listen to on the radio. Telephone hour, remember that? Called Bell Telephone, or was it still?
No, it's telephone hour. And then Jack Benny, we listened to Jack Benny.
There was the Firestone hour.
Yeah, Firestone.
But anyway, it was pretty music, and she calls in to listen to that. She always thought that no musical instrument could ever be as beautiful as a human voice, and she always preferred that. And of course, I like the instruments, but she always loved the human voice, and she sang pretty good.
And at the time that we were brought up, there was a lot of country and western music, or hillbilly music, like they used to call it. But Mom would never allow us to really listen to that type of music. We were always listening to something that was more of a classical type, or maybe
Well,
mediocre.
we used to listen to Bradley Kincaid.
I remember him.
It was,
Yeah, she's before our time.
who played the guitar and sang country stuff.
Well, Dad had country people down there on the theater before the movie would start.
Oh,
He would
yeah.
always have a trio, maybe of a fiddle and maybe a guitar or something else, and they would
That
do
was the
music.
fiddle and the guitar.
What was the other?
We had some good-
Charlton Horton's father used to sit up in
Louis-
that little
Louis
balcony up above the thing and play. They would play during these heart-rending scenes. They
Yeah.
would play over these.
We had silent movies at first, and they, remember they had the piano go too, and they would
I
have the
don't think
words
we
up
had
there.
piano.
Wasn't it a piano? It had some
Maybe
kind of
not, I
instrument.
don't remember.
Well, we had some of the most well-known country and western people here at one time. We had Chet Atkins, we had the Bra Harper Boys, we had,
In the theater?
yes.
They would do it right before the movie,
Whiting and Hogan and the WBT Briarheart.
Yeah, we had them, and we had Chet Atkins, we had, all of the different ones that now are in their seventies and their eighties. They came here, and the people would come from miles around, would even walk in to hear them.
And Daddy would make his most money on the Trail of the Lonesome Pine.
Yeah.
The people around here really identified with that movie, and he would make as much as $100 that weekend. He thought that was great, you know, selling at 15 and 25-cent tickets. And,
Well, when he had these people on the stage, first thing he would tell them, no dirty jokes.
yeah, and then he'd say, "Let her go, Virgil," whenever the movie would start, and Virgil was running the machine, and he'd say, "Let her go, Virgil," and then start the movie. And we sold the popcorn, and took the tickets,
Well, we swept,
and
we swept.
cleaned up.
We started as the youngest, we swept, and then we would go to take up the tickets as we got older, and then we graduated into
Making
selling the
popcorn.
tickets.
Oh, I ran the movies some.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
he did.
WC
WC
did.
ran the movies too.
And making popcorn.
Yeah.
And then- Of course, we had one theater down Park, and we
Yeah.
had one here. So sometimes Daddy would take two of us over there and one of us over there to work, and we'd work till late because it took an hour to get to Elk Park. Now you can go in, it was only 15 miles, but you had to go down Blevins Creek. There was no other road, this road wasn't built, and it would take a long time, and sometimes with snow and ice.
Yeah,
it would
we
be
had to
bad.
look out the windows and see how Daddy was driving.
Did you have two projectors so that you, or did you have to
Yeah,
stop and
we had two
rewind?
projectors. No, we
Didn't
had
have
two,
to-
we'd start one and then do the other, and start the other. We had two
Wouldn't
projectors.
have to rewind.
No, you'd have to wait and rewind it.
You go back even farther to see, Crossnore was the only place around here that had lights.
That's right.
We would go visit our friends outside, and none of them had lights. They were still using the lamps.
Do you remember what year we got the electricity, Uncle Doctor got it?
It's at 19.
No, I don't. All I can remember is that we nearly always had it, and this house was wired for lights.
Yeah.
So it
1926.
would have had to have been
No,
about,
before
before WC was born,
Well,
before
27
this house
was the house
was
was
built.
Probably 24.
No, I don't remember not having
Well,
lights in there.
Colbert could tell you about how the lights were wired and everything, because the sloop house, the Bill sloop house, he just had to put new wiring in it, because they had the old wiring that Uncle Doctor had put in there.
Knob and peg,
Yeah.
yeah.
Which was not which was not the house.
It wasn't the house, it was the office at the time.
I remember that we'd go out to hunt a cow that was lost or something, and we didn't have flashlights, we'd use a lantern. So we used lanterns quite a bit, up at the barn or anything, we'd use a lantern, because there was no lights up there.
We were one of the few people that had inside plumbing and
Electricity.
Did the film ever stick in the projector
Yes.
and melt right in front of everybody's eyes?
They had these arc light things, you know, these
Carbon
carbon
arcs, yeah.
things, and
You mean
sometimes
for
they would
the
break
movie?
for the projector, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I remember those things very well. And then on the film, there would be these little
Little
dots
dots,
that
yeah.
would tell you when you to turn, pull the other projector on, so that there was no break.
In the movie, right?
Yeah, the movies were very popular, but we were the only ones that had movies, I guess, for a while.
Well, you know, actually, before Daddy owned the theater, Mr. Cleve Franklin did.
Yeah.
And when the old silent movies, Mr. Cleve Franklin owned the movie, and I remember once your mother and Nanny and I were in there, and your mother was a sleepwalker sometimes. She got up and wandered out of the movie picture theater, and we had to go look for her.
She went to sleep in the movie?
Well, she was asleep, and so she just got up and walked out.
And remember when we couldn't go to the movie because the polio epidemic was so bad, and they wouldn't let children go to the movie, so we would hide under the theater and listen to the movie. Because we weren't allowed to go in the movie, and it was built up, that was in the old wooden theater, and we could get under it and listen to the
That
movie
had to
because we
be,
couldn't go in.
that had to be in 43.
Yeah, that was when
43 or
polio-
44.
I remember when they closed down all the pools in the summertime in Asheville.
I would think we ought to say something about, you know, one thing that always impressed me around here was that the mountain men were gentlemen. They were so, always gentlemen. They would always say, they would always talk to you, Miss Dellinger or Miss Cordelia or something like that. and they were always courteous. And we wandered around here all through the woods and everywhere, and we were never the least bit afraid. Mama said we could go anywhere, and she wasn't worried about us. And we often did. We hiked all over to the Uncle Will place and places like that, and over there.
However, she used to come after us sometimes with her hand on her hips.
Especially we were gone too long.
She didn't go very far. She wasn't a great believer in walking.
No, I remember her meeting us though, coming down the path up there, because we'd stayed at the river too long and it was getting dark, and she was
Well,
very unhappy with us,
I
and
remember
always her hands would be
Daddy
on her
coming,
hips.
coming after us with a switch. He called us twice or 3 times for supper, and we hadn't come. So the next time he came with a little switch.
One thing I remember about Mama was that when we would go to the dam and fish and we'd catch these little sun perch, I mean, they weren't bigger than a skint minute. We'd sometimes catch 25 and 30 sun perch. And Mama would always clean them and cook them for us. And she was very patient that way.
Remember the time she made us a English sparrow pie?
Yes.
The English sparrows would come in through the chicken wire and eat the chicken food, and it used to make us very unhappy that they'd do that, because we'd feed the chickens, and we were raising chickens and eggs, and these little birds would come through and eat it, and they never went out and ate seeds like they were supposed to in the yard or the grounds. They'd come and eat the chicken food, and so W.C. would shoot them with his BB gun. And so Mom made a sparrow pie out of
It
it.
was like a big pork pie. I mean, it was in a big pan like this. It didn't taste very good. Tastes terrible.
And Lloyd
Too many
and
bones.
we sometimes went fishing, and we were going to have supper out, and we'd take a frying pan and some stuff, and she always took ham along in case Dad
case
didn't
Dad
catch
didn't
any
catch
fish.
And Rachel used to catch more fish than Daddy did, which would make Daddy very unhappy. Rachel was just a
Yeah.
little girl, and she would catch bigger fish.
I
than Daddy
remember
did.
Daddy on 4th of July up at the dam, and Daddy had this new fishing rod, and he was just fishing, and here I had a little pole, a little cane pole, and I was down below him, and I caught a 16-inch sucker, and he hadn't caught a single fish.
Dad was very proud. He was very competitive like Cordelia. Cordelia and Daddy were very competitive all the time, play horseshoes or whatever. They tried to win really hard. I mean, with me, I would play for the game, and okay, it was nice if I won, but if I didn't, I had an out because it didn't matter. But to them, it always mattered. They had to win.
Oh,
Cordelia,
this is the one
except for Scrabble.
who's got to win at Scrabble now.
Yeah, right. Well, when I pick the right letters, I can win.
But, yeah, he taught me how to play horseshoes and how to play,
Setback.
and checkers.
That's
He
it.
really
Oh,
taught
he
me.
was a good checker player. He used
Come
to
on, come on.
he used to play checkers with some of the people down at the store.
The other thing is that he never gave you any inch. If you won, you felt like you had really won, because he was not going to give the game to you. So the first time I beat him in checkers, I thought I had hung the moon, because he played to win, and I did too. So we had a great time.
Well, some of them, other memories is that Mom, we used to have a fire, grate, and it was a coal fire, and it was used for a lot of purposes. If it's a washing machine, or if we couldn't dry clothes outside, she'd hang clothes around on the furnace there. And at night, I remember as a child, I had to be small, because she'd have all the children around there, and I could straddle her neck and comb her hair while she was reading to us.
She read us Uncle Remus
Yeah.
a lot. And we would all sit on the arms of the chair, the
Yeah.
rocking chair, which is still upstairs, and Rachel may be on her neck, I remember that, but all the rest of us would be sitting around, and she'd read Uncle Remus to us.
They were a very good mother and father, I think.
Yeah, with no TV, and radio wasn't very good. You could only get radio every now and then, and it wasn't a very clear station. You get WBT, I guess we got Pittsburgh. First station we got was Pittsburgh. We get Pittsburgh. And one other station, a national station. But we didn't get local stations, of course, at all. So it was pretty hard to listen to radio or anything. We played records, and Anna Laura had a Victrola. Anna Laura was roaring 20s, and
Oh,
she
yes.
played the Victrola. She'd wind it up and play this swinging music. And of course, Anna Laura was much older than I was. She's 15 years older than I was. And they told me, said, we have a sister, but she's away at college.
Well, we
When
used
I
to
first remember her.
play records while she and her friends played bridge in there.
Yeah.
I was the one who
Played
did the control, the Victrola.
Yeah. And she danced at Charleston and everything, you know. Anna Laura was
She
quite
was
a
a,
swinger.
yeah, she was a
She was a
pretty,
swinger.
very pretty too.
But the thing about our parents was they always welcomed their friends here.
Mhm.
And one thing I think is so sad now that young boys and girls cannot just get together and play games like we used to do. The boys would come over here and we'd play cards or something of that kind and just be friends. You didn't have to date, you just could be friends.
That way you
And
got to
now
know them.
so much of the time, you don't get that.
It's all sex.
Mhm.
We used to have CEs, Christian Endeavor,
Right.
and we'd have friends come over here
It's on Sunday
on
nights.
Sunday nights. And we used to listen to the squeaking door,
Intersection.
intersect,
On the radio.
on the radio.
Pop popcorn.
Yeah.
Around the fire.
Eat hot chocolate.
Right.
Drink hot chocolate.
Now, Cordelia and her friends and Ruth, they did donuts. Mama would make donuts.
And I
I
watched
was the one that made the
it.
donuts.
Yes, and I
Oh,
watched
I
the
remember
dishes.
the donuts.
They never complimented me for washing up after Cordelia.
Do you remember the night, do you remember the night you'd make waffles?
Oh,
No, I don't think we
well,
made
that was
waffles.
during my time.
Not
Because,
until we got the
yeah,
electric waffle
yeah,
iron.
because that's one thing that Harlan Bowles remembers, is eating waffles and sausage here.
Well, I remember having
Yeah.
waffle suppers,
Yeah.
but that's after the electric waffle iron
Yeah.
came.
Yeah.
But it was pretty antique by the
Yeah.
time I got there. Talk about the sense of family that your mom and dad gave you, which I think continues to be extraordinary. And
Well-
how do you think they did that?
I don't know, what they always told me was, Cordelia, you're responsible, and you're the oldest, you're supposed to set a good example for
But
your
she
younger
didn't.
sisters. And also, I don't know, we were just sort of a unit. We might
We didn't
fight
really-
like dogs and cats amongst ourselves, but if there was anybody else came along,
we all did it against them and
And-
worked together.
they always made it, always to us, insisted on family relationships.
That's right.
We'd go visit their grandmother and grandfather Dellinger, and
Every
so
Sunday.
occasionally go down and visit the Sloops, but of course they were mostly dead by the time we were any age.
Yeah. Our
But
grandparents.
there was always, you are a part of a larger group.
We'll go see Uncle Arthur. We always went
Saturday.
our dad always wanted to go somewhere on Sunday afternoon. He always liked to travel, either visit a relative or do something and go on a picnic or go on when the Parkway was built. We'd always go up there and see how far they got on the Parkway. And
We
usually have
built
a
every
picnic
inch
end
of
of it. Yeah, we watched them build every bit of that Parkway.
Oh,
And we'd usually have a picnic at the last place that they had finished building that Sunday. We'd go and have a picnic because they weren't working on Sunday, and we could go have a picnic right where they
I
quit.
remember especially one place on the Parkway that we'd go and we would go under the bridge, is there on Humpback Mountain. And they were working on that bridge to go over the, the large chasm or whatever you call it.
Well, I remember those big, it's just as you start up, those great big
Big
rocks,
rocks, yeah.
they have rubies in them.
Yeah.
And we used to.
That's
climb
where,
down
yeah,
them.
that's where I'm talking about.
But our parents always made us appreciate the beauty of the mountains. You would think that after they grew up in them and they'd seen them all their life, that there would not be that joy of the beauty of the mountains, but they always made us
Yeah.
appreciate the beauty of the mountains. Look at those trees, aren't they beautiful? And so we got that sense of beauty from them.
Talk about climbing up the side of Linville Gorge.
That was Cordelia and WC, not me, not Rachel.
Yeah,
We
that
were,
was me.
they were done.
WC
I wasn't even
and
there.
Andrew.
Andrew,
wasn't there.
WC, and Cordelia and
I
I.
must have been away to college.
Well, we
Yes,
got
I
down
remember.
there and we decided well, let's try going up
Up the
this way.
side of it.
So we started up. And I was scared to death at first because it was we were going along across this rock that was, fairly sheer. But I mean, you could do it. You could find toeholds on, and so we climbed up it. And then we went on up.
And then you couldn't go back down.
And on up. And I will never forget my daddy's face when he saw us up there.
He said,
edge of it.
He was on Wiseman's
She was
View.
old
and
enough to know better
Yeah.
because she'd finished college. I was still at Maryville. And you finished college.
Well, I was
Supposed to be
home
smart to know
because
better.
Tim was overseas.
I know, that's right. So she finished college, college graduate, doing something dumb like that.
So it was during World War II, and he was,
Well,
44.
on Sundays.
43, because I was there still at college. It might have been 44.
44, I think.
44, yeah.
Well, on those Sundays, we would, this wasn't a Sunday, of course, Andrew and WC and I, and sometimes Rachel, not always Rachel, we would go around the edge of Grandfather.
Yeah, and go
And
up the creek.
Laura and
Yeah,
Joe
did that.
would park, and then we'd climb up the Wilson's
creek.
Creek or one of those places. We
But
climbed
this-
nearly every Sunday.
But this Lynn McGord's thing was after WC died.
No, there
No,
was
gosh,
alive.
Well, then that was before 46.
We said 44.
Yeah, 44.
He was the one that had a rope, and I was scared one place, and he was scared another, because we had to go across
I
a
was
rock.
scared the whole time.
Well, he was not, WC usually wasn't frightened, things like that. Usually he was pretty sharp. I know even over that little Indian cliff, where I was climbing around there, and I was kind of frightened, but he wasn't.
And then,
Indian cliff over in that area.
oh, well, that's no
Well,
problem.
he was down there by
But
the river though.
we went, we went over there, and the first time I took Ted over there, he said, there was poison ivy all over the place, and I didn't know it. We used to crawl through it all the time.
well, now that we're out at Wiseman's View and we're talking about that area, talk about a picnic and how Nanny would cook it, and what she would cook in the big
Fried
pots.
chicken.
She'd start from scratch and she'd have fried potatoes and nuggets.
Yeah, she used, and
fried
ham.
potatoes.
She would have ham.
And she
cooked
cooked
with
it all
ham.
over the fire.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, we had to wait a long time to get the food because it took a
We
long
used
time
to
get it.
look for quartz out there.
Mhm.
We'd find a lot of quartz out there while she was cooking and play.
Cause it took a while for her to cook, is all
Oh,
it
yeah.
cost.
And we would picnic on Road Mountain too.
Oh, we'd spend the night up
Spend the
on
night
Road
up there, and I remember waking up to the smell of bacon. Mom would be cooking bacon on the
So y'all would spend a night or two up there?
fire. Yeah, we just
At
one
least
night.
one.
at a
Well,
time.
you drowned it when you were up there. I mean, the fog had
The
come
dew
in.
was so heavy.
And we'd sleep on that moss.
You know who remembers spending nights on Road Mountain?
Hmm.
Olson.
Oh, so
Oh, yeah.
Pemberton, he was with us one time.
We used to sit up
I'm
and
not gonna say it.
we used to sit up and eat watermelon and drink coffee by the fire thing. We
We're
didn't
still
get up
doing
all
that
night
after we
back.
got married.
Uh-huh.
Because I spent the night up there too. After we got married, you were still doing that.
You're still doing that, Bill.
Yeah, we did.
And remember when Joe Weaver was alive and we were going down Road Mountain and she,
Yeah.
and Mom was in the Jeep and he was gonna beat somebody going down the mountain. So
He
he
went
went
straight
straight
down.
down and didn't follow the road,
Didn't
he
follow
just
the
went straight
road.
down. And
He was in a big
the
Jeep.
Jeep.
And,
So ours has-
yeah.
Would y'all sing and tell ghost stories around the campfire?
Yes.
Things like
Sometimes.
that?
Well, I'll tell you where I remember the ghost stories. We're over at the mill timber going towards the dam when the Smiths came down. Eustace Smith and
His
Nelson and
brothers.
all their brothers came down. And we'd go over there and they were camping out. They always camped out. And they would tell some of the worst ghost stories I've ever heard
They
of.
came back for about
Well,
3
you know
weeks.
who could really tell them was Miss Hobson.
Yes, oh yes.
She used to have roots of hair standing on end.
Tell about Granddaddy helping care for the dam. Someone was talking about.
Well, I was telling about the time that,
gosh.
He had to swim.
well, the time that the ice was blocking the sluice so that the water couldn't come into the powerhouse. And Uncle Doctor and Daddy were over there trying to clear that ice away, and they had to go down under the water to get to the place that the water comes out and where the ice was. And they were trying to unblock it. And Aunt Mary asked me if I would go over there and check on them because they were worried about them being gone a long time. And so I took some hot chocolate and sandwiches and I rode the horse over and took, because snow was pretty deep. It was winter, of course. and took it over there, and they were still working, but they were both still living. I gave them some hot chocolate, or cocoa, and rode back, and I told Aunt Mary they were okay
They said one time that a stump got caught in the,
in the sluice.
where the sluice. And Daddy dived down and moved the stump. He was a very strong person, a very strong swimmer.
And you see, he could have gone down into the sluice himself.
He
It would have been
also,
dangerous.
what, I've forgotten who's told this story, but in the 1940 flood, the water was all the way up to the road there at the,
At
at
221.
that 221. And he swam from there over to the dam.
Across the mill
Yeah.
timber to the
Well, he went
snake's
across
den.
mill timber
Right.
when it was way over the mill timber down
He was pretty athletic. He'd been a baseball player and so forth.
there. And he loved to skate. When the dam was frozen over, he was a great skater.
He was a great baseball player.
Yeah, they
They
called
used
him
to call him
Ty
Ty
Cobb.
Cobb.
Because he was steered Colbert, so they called him Ty Cobb. GC.
Well, I was prepared for her husband and sons that were into all sorts of athletics because your mother and he took us to every
Oh,
baseball
yeah. I
game,
went to
every
it.
football
we
game,
did.
And we
every
could not see the
basketball
game.
game that there was.
No, we were too
We
small.
couldn't see over the game, and so, because they didn't have bleachers, and we'd walk along the line to see what football players were doing, and I couldn't see what was going on
Me
anyway, but Daddy would have drag us along, and.
He knew every one of them,
Oh,
and they
yeah.
loved to have him come. He was a one-man rooting team.
Yeah, just like your mother. I mean, your
Ruth
your
became
mother, yeah.
exactly like him. And she
And
used
I
to
remember
drag
the-
us up and down the football field.
Mhm.
Stand
Um,
right there where the play was being made. Mom, boys! Mom, boys!
Yeah,
I think she got that from Granddaddy.
The old gym up there, and the only way you could keep warm was a big pot-bellied stove.
Yeah.
And boy, you'd never freeze going up there to a big basketball game. I spent most of my time around the stove.
it's always cold.
And the players just kept warm running up and down the
Yeah,
court, I guess.
Mom taught, she did teaching too. And I remember as a child walking up to
Oh, is it somebody in there?
the not elementary, but the primary grade school and meet her up there. WC and I go up there and meet her up, halfway up to the school. They worked, and they taught us how to work. And I think one of the reasons that we are as happy as we've been is that we were taught to provide and to care for others. I think that was the greatest gift they gave us.
Well, they all worked in the church. Mom was superintendent of the primary school, and Daddy was superintendent of the whole Sunday school and all that stuff. So there was a lot of that deal going on. We went to Sunday school and church all the time. Dad used to lead the singing. He loved to sing "Trust and Obey" and some of those old songs. He would lead the singing.
Well, they helped people around here. There were these women whose husbands had died,
Yes.
and they had children, and
Dolly.
they would help them, give them milk and eggs and things of that kind.
If she fixed a pot of beans, she would give some of the beans to some. that
And we
they-
always shared our apples with neighbors and
Yeah.
people, friends. And Cordelia used to say, when Mom said that we had to take care of all the apples or God wouldn't give us any the next year, Cordelia says, I wish He wouldn't give us quite so many. Because we had to pick them up and always deliver them to everybody. Because she wanted to give them to friends. And we did.
Yeah.
And I think that although we've had problems, and everything in our life, I think that we've grown to love each other even more.
Well, I never knew we were poor. I always thought we were rich. I mean,
Yeah.
well, I never thought I was rich, but we always had plenty to eat.
Yeah.
Even during the war, when people were given ration, we used to joke about the fact that we didn't need the ration. The only thing we ever used it for was sugar. And we used to have, in the sugar
Jars.
bowl, each one of us had a sugar bowl with our name over it. So we could only use up our sugar. Because sugar was ration. Well, gas was ration, but we didn't use the car that much. And we didn't have a problem with meat. We raised our own pigs and we raised our chickens and stuff. So we didn't need ration cars at all. And as I say, I never felt we were really poor. We were okay. But when I went away to college and I brought my friends home in 1946, I guess, the year WC had died. Anyway, when they came over, they decided we were rich. And you know why they decided we were rich? is because Daddy had owned so much land. And he, at one time, I think he had about 150 acres of land. He always bought a lot of land. With the extra money he had, he always thought that was the future, and he would buy land. My
Mama
mother,
didn't
she'd buy
always
diamonds.
like that.
Mom would always buy diamonds with her money, and she would give us each one a ring when we graduated from high school, because she thought that was important, that we had something like that we could remember as girls. Women, we need something valuable that way.
I
She
used to
told us
barter
that-
my sugar,
For
because I
me.
didn't eat the sugar, so I would get other things that I wanted and give my sugar. Richard Aldrich loved the sugar.
She always thought it was important that you have the things that, so that you could set a nice table.
Yes.
Yeah, she liked it. And we didn't use the china. The china we didn't use except when we had company. We only broken one cup so far, which is pretty good. We set in for 12, and we've only broken one cup. I don't know who broke it. I don't remember that.
Probably don't want to remember.
Don't want to remember, probably.
Original
I
China.
don't know. But
I suspect the saddest time in your lives was when WC died.
Right.
at the time, yes, it was.
Yeah, that was a very
Yeah.
sad thing, I
Yeah.
mean, because it was a week
And he was so
before we
young.
got our body.
just 18.
She thought you should act like ladies too.
Yes.
I remember once I got into a fight because of your mother. She needed some protecting, and I got to pull Ava Hope's hair out by the roots.
That sounds like your
And she said, Cordelia, aren't you ever going to be a young lady?
Even if she were taking, of course, we used to get in trouble. Cordelia and Rachel and Ruth were down there taking care of these children. And Mom was ready for us to eat supper, and they hadn't come home yet. They were supposed to come home. So she sent me after them. And when I went after them, you know, they said, well, they haven't come back yet. We can't leave the children. I said, well, you go ahead and go. Mom wants you right now, and I will take care of the children while you're gone. Do you know what happened? I stayed there. When I got back, I got a spanking for not being there. And I had let them come home, and I was taking care of the children. So it wasn't always fair.
What children?
I don't even know the names of people. They lived down there where the periods used to be. And they've gone off, and I don't know, someone named Franklin, I think. And they had some young children, and you were taking care of them while they went somewhere. You were babysitting, you and Ruth were. And so I came up. So you only remember the ones that are not fair, you know.
That's true.
That's the kind of stuff I remember. So,
Those are the things that stick in your mind.
And is it on Sundays, you couldn't go swimming on Sundays. You couldn't do anything, you know, Mom was very strict about things Daddy never did.
Well, not after a while though.
They
I
gave,
remember
yeah.
we could go swimming on
But most of the times we played Bible games.
Yeah, that's
well, swimming wasn't that much fun because the water was so cold anyway. I mean, you know, and if you got in the water and there where it was deep enough to actually swim, the rocks were slick and you could fall, you know, or slide under or whatever.
Oh, the long hole, you go swimming there, you go to the dam.
And,
Tell about the time you went to the dam, Rachel, and that you almost drowned.
Oh, about WC. Oh, yes.
I
Well,
was in on that, I guess.
yes, everybody I think was there. We had all gone swimming at the dam, and there was a small little log that was floating around. And I caught a hold of the log to just sort of steady myself. And WC and Billy flipped the log, and I went under the log, right in the deepest part, and nearly drowned.
You
They
got
me
caught
out.
under the log.
Yeah, and boy, WC got a spanking after that. Everybody was worried, but it was right there where, you know, where the
Side there.
yeah.
Of course, it did. He didn't get a spanking for what we did when Mom wasn't there. We had a log that had
Oh, it
these
was
branches on
it was
it.
a big tree.
And we were shaking the tree back and forth, WC and I, where we thought that was fun. Rachel was trying to get on, and we were shaking it so she couldn't get on. We were being mean to Rachel. Mom didn't know about that.
Yeah, Andrew
WC
usually
says,
tells-
let's keep her off.
Andrew usually tells a tale about WC kicking me under the table, so Mom would have to get up and take me out, so that they could have more fun at the table.
We did some things like that that were not too good. And I remember Mom used to say to me, I was not a big eater in those days, and she'd say, Mary Agnes, eat your food, eat your food. And I said, no, I'm going to give it to Ring. That was a dog. And I said, she says, no, I want you to eat it. I said, but Ring wants it and I don't. There it was. She was.
Well, Ring was one of our first dogs. That's one that belonged to Dolly, Roby Vance. That was WC's first dog, I think, or one of the first dogs.
We had always outside dogs, didn't used to have inside dogs. Finally, we had Millie, a couple inside dogs, but mostly we had outside dogs. And they constantly, you know, were our friends. And we'd go for hikes and walks, and we would make up what we thought the dogs were saying. So-and-so was saying so-and-so, you know, that he wishes we would go hurry. He wishes, you know, what the dog would be thinking, you know, and we made up conversations for the dogs.
And then when they would get hurt or killed, or we'd have funerals. We had one place we'd always bury them, and we'd have funerals.
And beyond
It's
Cosby,
right
was a
up
big tree.
beyond your old house.
That's
Oak
under
tree.
that big pine up there
Yeah.
near Culver's.
And Mom would say she wasn't gonna let us have any more. And we would always tell her it was better to love than lost than never to love at all. And we always wanted another dog. We usually got one. And we had cats. We had cats, and the cats would have their kittens in the basement or whatever. Or they'd have big fights, you know, go out and, you know, cats do, and get up and fight. Come back almost dying, think they're never gonna recover. And we'd put them down in the basement on a cloth of some kind, and they would revive somehow. The cats always survived. I don't remember any of them ever dying from those fights they get in.
No,
Of course, we had this one that Andrew liked named Sheeta, and she always wanted kittens, and the other cats would have kittens, but this cat seemed to never have any kittens, and of course they weren't fixed or anything, so we expected them to have kittens, but she never did. So she would take the other cat's kittens and carry them and put them up in the front bedroom because she wanted kittens, and she'd steal their kittens and take them up there. So finally one time she did have kittens. She was in the basement, she had kittens, and she died when she had the kittens.
yeah, it killed her.
Yeah, killed her to have the kittens, and so Mom says, well, she wanted the kittens so badly, we can't let the kittens die. So we put them behind the stove and fed them with little eyedroppers and things. Fed those kittens about every 4 hours or so with milk and sugar in it and everything. And I don't think we lost any of them, did we? All the
No.
kittens survived until Lambert Johnson closed the door on one of them's tail and made them bobtailed, and what else happened to them? I don't know, a lot of things happened to kids, but they survived. Those cats, but we did grow those cats up.
Maybe
Yeah.
one more question or so.
We call that one Bobby.
Yeah, we
Nice
caught him.
question.
Yeah, he closed the door. That was Annalara's boyfriend at that time, and he closed the door on the cat's tail and broke it off.
Well, on that happy note, Gilbert is thinking he's gonna run out of
That's
tape pretty
fine.
soon. So is there a way that you feel like you'd like to close this, being this remembrances of your time?
Well, I would like to say that I still love my sisters in spite of all the years we've had together. And that's pretty good.
Yeah,
And I love the two that we don't have anymore, and my brother very much. And the love that we have is carried on through our own children, and who feel this love, I think, and realize that families are important.
And I hope it will be carried on, although I don't have any children. I hope that
your
the
dogs
nie-
will
that
carry
the
on.
dogs and the nephews and nieces will make this type of life more prominent in their life, to make it more meaningful for themselves and for other people.
You have anything to say, older sister?
No, my younger sister can do most of the talking.
But we also want to thank Gilbert and Terry and everyone for making this possible for us to be together this
For her
Christmas
birthday, yeah.
for her birthday. And
Well, they knew what was important to me, and they decided that recovery with me would be to see my sisters and my nephews and nieces and stuff.
talk about working in the garden next year.
Yeah, sure.
Get ready for next
Peachy says,
year.
isn't there any food left on this table?
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, you two, three, everyone. Bye-bye.